Hello and welcome to another tutorial. So this time around, we're going to be taking a look at how we can actually create an in-game graphics setting screen. And so how we can set that up and the kinds of things we can change and adjust and how we can work with that. So let's dive on in. So I've already set up a little bit of a scene here where I've got a few objects, I've got some lighting and post-processing, things like that happening. I've also set up a bit of an interface here that's going to be able to be where we change the settings. So intentionally having this visible alongside the actual game so that we can easily see if we're changing things, what effect it's actually having. Now, some settings when we're in the editor, we're not going to see them have a major effect, but other ones will. So, starting point, let's take a look at the code and let's take a look at some of the things that we can actually adjust. So, how we go about ending up doing this, because there's going to be things we need to retrieve and start to populate that UI. So, we can actually access a bunch of stuff under, so we have quality settings. If we take a look at this, we've got a lot of different settings. Now, we're not going to implement all of these because there is obviously quite a few settings here, but there are some key ones that we can work with here, and those are the ones we're going to be taking a look at. So one of the big things that we've got is you've potentially seen with Unity the overall sort of quality level. So that's something that we can actually be working with. So if we take a look, because the starting point is we need to retrieve this. So we get an integer back. So quality level equal to a value. Now, those quality settings, if we take a look in our project settings, we should be able to see the particular ones. So if we are looking at under quality, these different levels here, those are things that we can actually rename them, and we want to go and look things up based upon name. An important thing with this, these names are not always going to be the same for the different pipelines, and the order of them is not also going to be the same. So with built-in, by default, the highest index, so the highest number for that quality level, is the highest setting. That's not always the same in the other pipelines. So that is a thing we do need to watch for with that. So to turn these into names though, I can go, hey, quality settings and names. So this is an array that quality level, I can directly look things up based upon that. So if I log this out, we can see what one we are currently in, which Ultra is currently green. So we would expect it to say that Ultra is the setting that we've currently got. So we'll see what we see in the console, and we do see Ultra. So our starting point is going to be actually adding in that of having our overall quality setting. So this one's going to be overall quality. And then with this, we want to have a label in there so that we know that this is overall quality. And we'll just position this up at the top and make this cover the whole width. That looks good. And there, that looks pretty good. So we've got our overall quality setting. We might change the color of this. I think that'll be a little bit easier to read. So we've got our overall quality setting, and then we need to have the actual drop down for selecting that. So if we go to UI, then we can add in a Text Mesh Pro drop down or a setting drop down, and we'll again position this. So this one, going to get this nicely positioned. Important to get all these things positioned early on so that we've got them at a good spot that we're happy with. So that is going to be about minus 35, minus 10. There we go, minus 50 looks pretty good. That means we can actually reduce the size of this, probably half. There we go. So it gives us our quality settings, and we might increase the text size in there a little bit because that is a little bit small. So let's track that up a little bit more. 24 is a much better size there for the text. Possibly could go a little bit larger again to make it a bit easier to read, but that will do pretty well. And we'll need to do a similar thing with the checkmark one here for that label. So that can also go up to 24. If we just turn this on, just so we can see how that looks, that looks all right. Cool. So to add settings into this, we'll take a look at how we go about doing that. The first thing, we need to have a link to that. So this is our TextMesh Pro. We need to bring that in. So TextMesh Pro, and this is going to be the TextMesh Pro version of a dropdown. So this is the quality level dropdown. So we need to populate that with entries. So how we can do that, if we take a look at quality level dropdown, so they're referred to in this as options. So the first thing we want to do is we want to remove any existing ones that are in there. And then if we go to look at add options, well, we can give this a list of things. So let's see if we can directly give it our names, because that would be ideal. And so we can't directly give it that because it wants a list. So we can work around that, because what we can do is just in line create a new list of strings for this. So that's good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cache my starting quality level. So my default quality level, and I'm going to populate that at this point. That just ensures that I've got that quality level already stored, and then I'm populating that list, and then I want to select that item in it. So quality level dropdown, set value, and in this case I want to do a set value without notify because I don't want to send any events associated with this. So there we go, that should populate the list, make sure it's selected. We can also set up our function here for public void on quality level change new level. And what we would be able to do at this point is we could make a change to it. So we could do, okay, well, quality level, well, sorry, quality settings, set quality level, new level. And for completeness, we'll also have our reset one. If we do a reset, then we want to go to default quality level, and again, reset the option. So I would always recommend this sort of approach of, as you implement the stuff for setting it, also implement the stuff for resetting. In apply is where we would do any saving of the logic. So in this case, we're applying these changes straight away. We could also cache those settings and then apply them a little bit afterwards. Depends on the particular setup that we're wanting to go for. But we'll connect this up now and we'll see how this goes. So we can get rid of all of these existing options because we don't need those. And we'll link up our onValueChanged. So this, when we're linking this up, what we're looking for is this dynamic int one. That way then it passes through the particular value. And then our graphics config needs to link to that dropdown. So what we're expecting to see is that this list gets populated, that the value shown at the beginning is ultra, and that we can select different values there. So let's test this. So we're up and running. It's correctly set that to ultra, which is good. So if I click this, I can see the different ones, which is good. So let's go for the complete opposite of where we're currently at and go to very low. You can see immediately there's been a change with the settings here and change in the appearance. We're losing stuff in terms of a lot of the shadows. Now, if we do a reset, you can see everything's back, which is good. Now, we did identify that the drop down, these items were looking a little bit narrow, so we're going to increase the size of those just to make that work a little bit better. So we'll check and make sure that that's appearing okay now. That's better. So we've got a different quality setting, so that's great. That's quality settings working. Cool. Well, there's other things we can change as well in this. So let's take a look at the other things that we can be working with. Because we also, a common thing is going to be resolution. So how do resolutions work? So to work with resolutions, we go through, it's not the quality settings. For that, we go through screen. And if we take a look with just resolution, we can see we've got a couple of bits of information. We've got our current resolution, we've got set resolution for applying a new one, and we've also got this resolutions array. If we take a look at set resolution, it allows us to manually pass in the individual parameters. So those are contained within those resolution structures. So let's grab those out. So screen.resolutions, and let's loop through all of these and see what these look like. So for int, and actually let's just do a for each for this. For each resolution in resolutions. Let's look at what we've got. So we've got resolution, width, we've got resolution, height, also got our refresh rate. So these are the three key things that we've got. So we can output this. So if we do this as something like this, plus app. That looks pretty good for displaying the individual resolutions. And let's log that out for our current resolution as well. So screen.current resolution, just so we can see what that is. And we'll put that as current. This will give us a bit of a sense of what the data looks like, which is always a good thing to do. It's good to get a sense of what it looks like and see whether how well that matches with what we're expecting. So we can take a look and we can see we're getting a whole bunch of different resolutions coming out, and we can see those are pretty much exclusively at 60 Hertz, and we can see the current resolution, which is great. So that's looking good. So what we can then do is we could set up another drop down that's going to let us select that resolution. We also, when we go to set a particular resolution, if we look at screen set resolution, we can also indicate whether it's full screen or not. So that's something that we could provide that option to the user as well, of full screen versus windowed, which you'll often see. So let's set this up though, because we're going to have serialized field, another drop down for a resolution drop down. Now we need to add these entries in, but these entries we have to first convert them to a string. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cache the set of resolutions. So resolution, cache resolutions. I'm just going to have this as a cached thing. Resolutions. So I think it'll be good to have that cached, and then that way we can also have an integer that is default resolution. So that looks good. Right, So we'll go through our list of cached resolutions here and we'll generate a string from those. So var resolution string, which we've conveniently put together already. So that's our resolution string. If you remember, with our options, so resolution drop down, we add a set of options. We don't add an individual particular one. So the easiest thing to do here is going to be to have a list of resolution strings that we populate. We build up the resolution data. So resolution strings dot add, and then we can add in a particular string, resolution string. So that looks good. Now, we probably want to check with this if our current resolution matches. Now, it is possible to get a case where your current resolution doesn't actually match the set of resolutions there. It's not common, but I have had that happen, in particular on laptops. That can tend to happen if it's, and it seems to be prone if it's something I've developed on a laptop and developed on a desktop and then taken to a laptop. So it is a thing that can absolutely happen. So that's something where what we can do is we could construct a resolution string for this current resolution. Current res string is equal to, so we construct this in the same way. And then what we could do here is if resolution strings contains current res string. So if it does not contain, actually there's a better way we can do this. So what we could do is default resolution is resolution strings index of current res string. Because if this does not contain our current resolution, this will actually give us back -1. So we can then check if default resolution is less than 0, well, resolution strings add current res string, and then default resolution is equal to resolution strings count -1. If the current resolution isn't stored, add it. So that's just a handy way of doing that. What that would also mean is our cached resolutions here, we would need to be able to extend that and add in a particular one there. Or what we can do is have default resolution, and this becomes a default resolution index, just as a handy way of storing this. So this is default resolution index. As I said, it's a rare situation to run into, but it is a useful thing to have this set up. Because what we'll be able to do then is default resolution is screen.current. Otherwise, default resolution is cached resolutions, default resolution index. So it's a little bit of jumping around, but it gets us having that data fully stored, and that's the key thing. Because then our resolution dropdown, for any options that are already there, we add in our resolution strings, and then what we do is we can select from this, we can tell it to select without notify, so resolution drop down, set value without notify, default resolution index. So that will set those options in there, so we'll be able to see those. We'll also set up now on resolution change. So new resolution. So what we would need to do here is we do need to do a quick little check if new resolution is greater than or equal to cache resolution dot length. If it is, then we're restoring back to our default resolution. So that's an important thing. If it is, we're selecting our default resolution. Otherwise, we're selecting from the existing ones. So what I would do with this is set resolution, cached resolutions, new resolution, and we can update the index. Actually, the index can update in both cases, that's fine. Whereas this one is going to just use the default one, default resolution index, and then we don't need to have a particular integer tracking what the current one is because we've already got stuff for doing that. It's already being tracked internally. And then in a reset, well, that's fairly straightforward. With a reset, we go and set our resolution again back to the default one, and quality level dropdown. Well, we can check what our default resolution index is. We know that that's going to then be set value without notify for that index because we added that default one in and we updated that index there. So now we just need our set resolution function. We have our set resolution, and that has resolution, new resolution. And what we then do after we fix up these is we can go, hey screen, set resolution, new resolution width, new resolution dot height. Now we can provide the full screen mode if we want. In this case, I'm going to say that we're just forcing full screen, and then we could say new resolution, refresh rate. So let's connect these bits up. It's going to be fairly similar to our quality setting one. So I'm actually going to duplicate the quality setting one. So resolution drop down, and we'll link this up as well. So our label, we'll need to update it in a little bit, but that gives us our particular, whoops, rather than overall quality, this is what we duplicate. And we bring this up here. So this will allow us to adjust the resolution. Fix up our text. Just rename this resolution drop down. And we need to change where that's linking up to. So that links up to on resolution changed. And our graphics config links up to that drop down. And that should allow it to populate it. So let's run this and take a look. We're expecting to see the resolution populated, which it is, and that matches what we had for our current one. And we can see the different particular ones. Now we won't see a difference here, and this is one of the things with when we're testing in the editor for resolution. You're not going to see a difference there. But if we do reset, so reset we can see is not properly resetting it back. So that's something where we would take a look, and this should have been a resolution drop down. So let's run that again and make sure that it properly is resetting it back. So we can run this. We'll select any resolution, do reset, and it goes back to what it was. So that's cool. We've got those settings hooked up. Let's take a look at a couple of other settings that we might want to connect in. So if we have a look again under quality settings, then There's a couple of ones here that might be a useful thing. So we could be adjusting things like our anti-aliasing. Can change settings there with that. We can be changing things like our log bias, which is going to affect stuff like the draw distance. Pixel light count is one that can have a huge impact in terms of performance. So that would allow us to have, as well as just an overall quality setting, we can do individual little tweaking of particular settings, which is cool. We also can look at things like, we've got stuff with particles, vegetation. There's a lot of different things we could be customizing here with this, which is great. And so if we take a look and see what might be some useful things. So one of the things that can be a useful one to do is if we set up a couple of lights. So we've already got a real-time light. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bunch more. Because if we look under the quality settings at the moment, the pixel light count is 4. So I am going to create a few more. I'm also going to turn shadows on for that one. So let's make some more lights. So we've got another one, and another one, and another one. And you'll notice ones are disappearing. That's because the number of pixel lights. So what we'll set up is a control that will actually adjust the number of pixel lights that are allowed. So I'm going to have, this time it will be a slider, pixel light count, and that is going to have a very fixed min and max. So this will also have public void on set pixel light count, or on pixel light count changed, pixel light count changed, new number. So quality settings dot pixel light count is equal to new number. We'll grab here in default pixel light count. And so with this, I'm going to grab it at this point. So default pixel light count, quality settings, pixel light count, pixel light slider, set value without notify to the default. Now, one of the things that I want to do here is when I change quality settings, I want to refresh this because that is part of the quality settings. So that default, I want to actually update at that particular point in time. So I'm going to retrieve the new default then, and same thing down here. When I reset the quality settings, I want to refresh that default. And then the final bit is just going to be setting this back. So setting the value without notifying, and quality settings, pixel light count is equal to default pixel light count. So this, we'll set up a little bit of a slider for this, and we'll be able to then adjust that. So we could be doing this for any of the different settings, which is cool. So I'm just duplicating the text. It's an easy way to control the setup there for it. And it's going to be positioned at 0. So this is pixel light count. And we'll chuck in our slider. Now, the slider, the min value, we're going to say is 1, and the max value will let people go up to 12, and it'll be whole numbers only. Now, we do need to adjust the on pixel light changed to be a float, and this will be a mathf round to int. So the slider will only send through it as a float value. So when it says single, it means float. So we'll link that up just so we can be getting that passing through. So pixel light count changed, which is good. And we can link up that slider. So pixel light count slider, pixel light count. And that slider, let's make that the size of this, which is good. Can make that height more like about 30, better height for it. And we'll position this more towards the top. Minus 50, that looks pretty good. Means we can then also shrink the size of this again down to about 100. So that looks good. It would be nice to see the actual number of pixel lights as well. So that's something where what I'm going to do is I'm going to, alongside grabbing the count, also going to have the text. So text mesh pro UI pixel light count label. And for consistency, that should be slider. Is with having that label there, what I can do is when we go and set these, this X pixel light count plus default pixel light count, or I could grab it directly from the quality settings. Either, if I grab it from the quality settings, then it'll make it a little bit easier using the code later on. Because again, what I do is down here where I am retrieving that pixel light count slider, we update our text. So that looks good. And then same here for when I change this, I want to refresh that. And I also will be adjusting my display at this point as well. Because changing those quality settings absolutely will change that number. So that looks good. We'll need to get things linked up. And then we'll be able to see, we should be able to be changing our pixel light count. So we've got our graphics config, have our label, and we have our slider. Also going to rename that label to pixel light count label, just so it's easy to tell that what we're working with. So we'll get this running. And so it's set to 4, which is what I would expect. Now, if I lower this, you'll notice the lights change. And if I raise it, it also changes until it's got all of those present. So that's good. So let's ramp this up to 12. And the quality, I'm going to drop the quality down to very low. And we can see the pixel light count has changed. Now that range has not properly changed though. So that's something where we want to check and see when we've changed the quality level, it's set that, but it's doing this in the wrong order. So the order could be like that. That will let us check and make sure that it's updating this in the correct manner. So some settings will inherently be there within those quality settings, so we do need to be cautious with that. So let's go to very low. And see, that changes, but I can bring that particular setting back in, and it's just changing that. If I go to very high, we've got everything back. Can go back down to very low, go to medium. So it gives us a lot of control over how this is actually behaving, which is good. So we've been able to see there how we can adjust those settings, and the way that I've set this up, it will allow you to add in a lot of different settings here. So it'll allow you to add in lots and lots of different ones. This field will automatically expand, so you can add in different ones. You could also add in setting entry here where it says custom, and then it only shows things like pixel light count and stuff like that when you actually have selected that custom one. So you could be working it based upon that. You could be grouping the information in different ways. It really depends on what you feel is going to be the best fit for your project there. But this gives a bit of a base that you can use for then going and extending it, adding in those different areas, and seeing the kinds of cool settings that you can set up. I hope you found the video helpful, folks. If you're looking for the code for the project, as always, you'll be able to find the code on the GitHub, and the link to that is in the description below. If you've got any questions or comments, please do chuck in a comment below. Always happy to try and help out. And if you found the video helpful, please do chuck in a like and subscribe. It really does help out. If you're looking for other ways to support the channel, then I do have a Patreon, and the link to that is in the description below. Bye.